welcome to the Rooted Connections podcast.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
Can you believe?
We have finally left the WhatsApp group.
As in, God, how long have we been having this conversation? At least 2 years now, I'd say nearly.
Conversation, yes, nearly 2 years. And then I think actual planning, probably near on a year.
That's crazy. But we're finally here. We're finally doing it. And yeah,
Very excited.
really excited. Because I think we have so many interesting conversations. And I think that's kind of what birthed the idea of the podcast, because a lot of what we talk about, so actually it'd be interesting to have those views, put it out there, and actually see if other people are thinking
In the same
the
way.
same way, or
Just-
maybe we're just weird.
I think there's a little bit of weird, a bit weird, I have to say, but I generally think people will resonate with our thoughts, and it's really just for us to facilitate conversations, get people talking, and sharing with us. So the whole aim here is it's not just us talking to each other, is you guys also talking to us.
So we want to assume that, you're in the room with us and you guys are here and we're just having a heartfelt conversation. The whole idea of the podcast is that we're going to speak from the heart. We're going to speak our truth, because obviously we're all different. We all think differently. So it's not a one way, one dimension podcast, but it's open up conversation and really get to the root of, rooted connection, get to the root of a lot of the things that we're thinking, and just vibe really.
So before we get into all of this, who are we?
Hey, okay, so very briefly, my name is Pam, and I don't know, how would I describe myself? I think I'm a very quiet person, but some
No.
people, some people
No.
disagree.
Quiet. Intro.
No,
Mario.
well,
She's quiet.
I would describe myself as, okay, when I'm comfortable around people, I think that's when you see the bubbly, the talkative Pam. But I can sometimes be a little bit introverted in situations or in places that I'm not quite sure and I'm trying to source people out.
Okay.
That's what I would say. But yeah, I can agree, when I'm comfortable, I can't shut up. Yes, to some extent. And I love people. I love conversations. I mean, it just, the reason I say that is I think that has sort of guided a lot of my life choices. Starting with the occupation I'm currently in, being a social worker. I just love making a difference in whatever way, shape, or form. That is just who I am, and I love to leave people with a little bit of something, a little bit of me, wherever I go.
That's true.
Kind of how I would describe myself.
That is true. So my name is Uju. How do you follow that sort of introduction? Oh, well, so my name is Uju. Personality wise, I'm not quiet, I don't think. I'm not quiet. I'm reserved. So in certain instances, I am that speak when spoken to kind of person.
Sure.
And I think that's really down to being the last born in my family, and my immediate senior sister is like 10 years older than me. So I'm very much grew up in that sort of setting where you don't really speak until, you can chat and all that at home, but generally you're not involved in the conversation. You're not involved in the decision making. So it's kind of fed into how I am, in that I can be in certain spaces quiet. I'm just taking it all in.
Yeah.
But other than that, when I'm really comfortable, I can be loud. As in, I can be. Where it's like, tone down your volume.
Yeah, interestingly, actually.
Just like, it's like,
yeah.
would you calm down? It's not that easy. Tone it down.
Especially when it's something that you feel
You
quite
get
strongly
when I'm
about.
getting very
Yeah.
passionate. It's like, calm down, tone it down. In terms of work, I work in the energy sector. I kind of stumbled into that, and I've done that for 15, 17 years.
Wow.
Too long. But yeah, so I work in the energy sector, and on top of that, I work as a magistrate in the family court in Leicester. And primarily for the reason Pam said, is just my way of making a difference, My motivation for doing that was really a few people I knew, had issues with the family court system, and they approach it with this fear. And so for me, it's like, why are we so scared of this system? And the only way to sort of understand it or make a difference is
Yeah.
join it.
Have the understanding of how things work so that you can then share that knowledge.
Exactly. So that was kind of one of my motivations for doing that. And over, you know, time on this podcast, I'm sure we'll discuss things that relate to that, especially with Pam being a social worker. So she's in that space from one side, and then I'm on the other side. And we've never actually met in court.
I think it'll happen.
It will. Is
I
only
think
a
it
matter
will.
of time.
Yes, I think it'll happen at some point. And that would be so
But
interesting.
that would be cool. Well, actually, I think I have to say that I know the social worker, so I don't think I'll be able to sit on that case.
Oh, no, wow, that's not
Conflict
good.
of
No.
interest, isn't it?
Well, it's okay. It's okay.
Before they'll say that I was siding you just because
I'm
of
being
that.
biased.
Yeah, do you understand? But yeah, so that's me. I'm a mom. I've got 2 daughters.
Okay.
What else? Oh, well, I'm a wife as well. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. That's me.
So lots of similarities there. I've got 2 daughters, also married. And yeah, so why did we decide to do the podcast? Why did we decide the Rooted Connections podcast? Why?
Um, so we've touched a little bit on that, just facilitating conversations. But one of the key things is this tussle between how we were raised, how we grew up, and the world that we're living in today. So we both grew up in Nigeria, and we're raising children in the United Kingdom. We live in Leicester. And the contrast between what we have, what we were raised with, and what we're having to give our children, it's a completely different space. So we've had a lot of conversations exploring that, and we thought it's something that people will relate to as well. We can all learn from one another. And there's this somewhat perception that there's something wrong with how we were raised, um just because we have better information now. So it's exploring that. But also I think some of the things that I'm starting to realize is the age we are now is the age our parents were when they were doing certain things. And the more I continue on my journey in parenthood, is the more I'm understanding sort of why our parents were the way they were.
Yeah.
So it's just, so this podcast is really just, it's not just for us, our age group, is for everybody really. Even those that are younger than we are, the Gen Z, the Gen Alphas, to get your perspective. Okay, Gen Alpha is a bit too young for this, I think.
Some of the conversations that we'll
I
have.
think they're a bit too young. But even the Gen Z generation is like, let's learn from one another. Let's have these conversations.
And I think more than anything else, it's exploring, like you said, some of those differences, mindsets, and point of views. And I really feel like our generation at the moment, we're so in the center of it all.
We are.
Center in the sense that we millennials, we lived that very, I would say, hard core parenting experience from our parents. We're now exploring how to balance that with raising Gen Z children.
Yeah.
And working with Gen Z generation,
Oh, that's
which
a big
is
one.
a whole nother conversation. But I think, like you said, a really important point to raise is now that we're actually parents ourselves, I think more than anything else, I'm learning to give more grace
Yes.
for
100%.
how our parents I almost would say, for what we know now, they didn't know.
Yep.
And so because they didn't know any different. But we lived through that. We experienced it firsthand, and it was tough. It was hard. I think one of the things we really want to get to the bottom of, or some of the conversations we're going to try and navigate, is what drove them to do the things that they did, and how are we different really, and if we are, how are we navigating our own life experiences differently to how they did, and what are we passing on to our children?
100%. And I think there's something so key there that you touched on in terms of millennials, because even with our parents, though they grew up having tough parents, they were still in an era where tough parenting, so to speak, worked. So the difference between what they were passed and what they passed down, the world was still fairly similar.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
the gulf between what you received and what you had to give was not as wide.
yeah.
But in our case, the world has changed
Oh,
so
there's a massive
much.
shift. Massive shift.
So for every millennial you know out there, just give them a hug. We are trying.
Ah, what do you know?
We are trying because
It's hard.
we are
It's
the
hard
ones that are
sometimes.
seeing, like, our generation has seen the biggest technological advances, as the world has changed so much from when we were children.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
please, big hug for every millennial. You are doing well.
So interesting you just said that because um I remember I got my first mobile phone when I was 19. Yeah, I was 19 when I got my first mobile phone. And now my daughter's 10 and she just got her
Imagine.
first phone.
Can you even compare what you had
I know. I
then?
had a normal
Which one
normal
did you have?
GSM now.
I think
GSM
I
phone.
think my
It's
first
not
one
GSM,
was
they call
a
it
Sajem. No,
something.
Sajem
Yeah,
still
yeah.
look full.
But it's not GSM they used to call it back
Hey
then.
now,
Yeah,
yes
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It's probably still. What does GSM actually stand for?
Actually don't know.
I know it's the short for something, and it's probably that term
Stay
probably
tuned.
still exists.
We'll,
We'll get back to
we'll
you.
let you all know.
Use him.
Or actually if you or if you know, please put it
Yeah, if you know, please
in the
tell us, because
comment
I actually
section.
don't know what GSM
I actually
stands
don't know.
for.
I've never actually thought to check on it.
Well,
It will be interesting. But yeah, really interesting. She has an iPhone.
imagine,
She has an iPhone.
imagine.
It's not a brand new one though,
It
but
doesn't
still.
matter, but
She
still.
has an iPhone and one more. That's crazy.
But there's still that as well, even with the kids. We were given, how will I call it? Should I call it is it the worst? They just buy the most basic thing and give to you. But all of us had the basic. But now, if you either don't buy the phone or you have to buy a decent phone.
No, but then we were grateful.
I know.
We were grateful because it was even still there was still a bit of a class thing about it.
Ah, of course.
So even for those of us that had phones, it was like it was a flex.
Some people's parents did not have phone.
No, exactly. It was a massive, or only one person will have a phone in the whole
Exactly.
house. So,
Exactly.
so yeah, but now it's like, what phone? Can you imagine your child asking you, so what phone are you going to buy for
Hey
me?
now. You
Don't
come
buy
with
me
iPhone
nonsense.
13 and they are looking at you like, well, come on.
Get with the program.
I said, what's this? What's this? But man, it's a tough
Yeah,
world.
definitely. And I think just, a lot of what we'll talk about is how do we still raise children who have that heart of gratitude where they're not entitled, because I think one of our friends tends to say this a lot, that he feels like we're raising an entitled generation of
Say the
children.
friend with your food chest.
I shall not.
Say this friend with your food
I,
chest.
friend, you know yourself. But I think to some degree I agree with him. I agree
100%.
with him.
100%.
I think just being mindful of that and, finding that sort of, how are you all doing it? Give ideas. We really want to hear.
Honestly, how are you raising children to make sure they remain grateful? And I think another,
And grounded.
I was just going to say that, grounded and having the right values as well, because a lot of the values that we hold in as our core are not the norm in the West.
Mm-mm. Oh, yeah.
They might still be the norm in Nigeria, which I think even that is changing.
Oh, there's still,
There's
yeah.
still that shift, but here the values that we have, and it's even in the basic, in the little things. The other day, my children were talking about my neighbors, and they were just calling them by name, and it was pinching me a little bit. And I'm like, no, you don't. This is this person's mom, this person's dad. I can't tell you to call them uncle and auntie, but I'm like, no, don't do that. Is this person's mom? But they're like, but she introduces herself to
Oh, yeah.
me by her first name. So it's some of those little, it seems little,
Yeah.
But that distinction between, oh, you don't talk to an adult like that, and they are looking at you so confused.
Yeah. And one of the really interesting points on that is how when we move to the West, and I don't know whether it's particular to Africans because I don't think that really exists within the Asian community, but how we lose a lot of our cultural values.
Oh, wow, it's strong. Oh.
And like now we're trying to be so conscious with, okay, telling our children you have to, so now they don't greet us in English anymore. It's ekaro, ekason, ekale type thing. We're trying, even though me, I can't really speak Yoruba very well, but we're trying to instill that in them. But even that is it doesn't come naturally. And going back, just thinking about one of my core childhood memories, I remember we went abroad with my, back then, in Nigeria, we went on holiday with my parents, and they were speaking, because I'm from Delta State, Ishekiri, and they were speaking the language on the train. We were in Germany, and my brothers and I, we were so embarrassed. We moved. We literally moved away from them. Like, don't disgrace us. What is this?
Please,
But we're actually
we're
but the-
abroad.
Yeah, but the joke of it is we're actually in a country where they speak German.
They speak their own language.
So they're all speaking their own language, and my parents are speaking Ishekiri to each other. And me and my brothers were cringy, like, why are you disgracing us like this? Now, in hindsight, how wonderful would it have been for us to be able to talk to them in the same language? Because we didn't grow up speaking my language at home. Because my parents, although they speak to each other, they never really spoke to us.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that now that the age for me, those things are so important. And I really, really, really want to promote those things on. Yeah.
I think that's something that is, uh, should I say, a flaw with the way we grew up in a way and the way we saw things. Like if somebody has a strong accent, for example, we label the person as Raz.
Oh yeah, we laughed.
You will laugh at the person. Do you get that this person is Raz?
Age
But
factors and all that.
hey,
Yeah,
boy,
yeah.
and so people are now trying to blow some kind of funny that's well. But the truth is, why should you be ashamed of having an accent because Yoruba is your first language, or Hausa is your first language, or Igbo is your first language? But we label the person as Raz. And because of that, we're losing our own sense of culture. And I think it's now when you come out of it and then you now look at your children and they have no culture at all, you now start having an appreciation for what is lost.
Yeah.
But this is something that we were losing even when we were in Nigeria.
Oh yeah. And I think that's why it's so easy that we transition and just kind of just absorb the Western culture without even realizing, and losing a lot of those core cultural values that we need to be passing on to our children.
I think that's shifting though a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit.
and I
So
think there's a lot of awareness around it now. A lot of awareness around it because we need to have an identity, who we are, and why we are the way we are.
and I think there's also this awareness now, maybe amongst Africans, when you associate with people who don't have an identity. Perhaps like some of these the British or the Americans that grew up there, the black ones that I mean, and so they know where originally my ancestors were from some part of Africa, but they don't know where.
Yeah.
And there is that void. So when you associate with somebody like that or have that conversation with somebody like that who is really trying to fill that gap
Have that
and
quest
have
for-
that quest for understanding their roots, and then you know where you know your exact village, you kind of have an appreciation for that.
Yeah, it's a flex now.
And then when you're looking at your children, who you then look that if I carry on like this,
That's how they will.
that's how they will become, or their own children will not even, so they may know, but if I don't pass enough of it onto them, they don't have anything to pass on to the generation coming behind them.
Yeah.
And they would lose it.
Yeah. Which, allows for us to really touch on a variety of conversations. We're going to have a varied We're going to touch on a lot of things from parenting, marriage, divorce, everything that there is to talk about. There's hopefully going to be plenty
Oh,
for us to
there's
delve
always
into.
something to talk about.
So, whilst we've talked about the why, let's talk a little bit about why we are doing it, me and you.
Okay.
So Uju and I have been friends for God, I feel like a whole, I don't know, I've known you for way too long.
Yeah,
Whole
we met
lifetime.
in 2001.
That's crazy.
It's crazy to think that was 23 years ago.
It still feels like yesterday.
A
It really
child bonding has finished
now
uni.
don't
Let me just
don't.
put it into
Uh,
context for you. They are finished uni, they start
Please, I'm
working.
a very young person. I'm a young person. Please, I'm not old at all.
You are very young. We're all
Thank
saying
you.
we're all saying the same thing.
All right.
We're all saying the same thing. So yeah, we met in college, Global International College,
Mm-hmm.
Ikoyi, Lagos. Shout out to our global family.
That was such, those were some of my core memories growing up. I really enjoyed that year of college. We got up to so many crazy things.
Global was a vibe. It really
It
was.
didn't feel like we're going to school.
We did not go to school. I tell you for sure that I do not. Maybe the learning that I did there was maybe like
How
15%.
we even got through exams, I don't even, I really cannot tell you.
We passed too.
And we
That's the
did
funny
and
thing. We
we
did
did
well, but we spent more time playing than doing anything else.
got up to so much mischief. It was crazy. But it was good. It was interesting. And I think that those were some of the formative years of our friendship,
100%.
which has obviously evolved. And now we're married, kids, we're living life and we're still doing it as friends.
Yep.
Even though I think to some degree we're different, but we still have similar values.
We do. And I think it goes back to when I say the core values. So I think at the core, we're very similar in certain things in terms of how our values and how we see life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the root. So go rooted connections. So at its roots, we have what we always come back to.
Yeah.
So we may be different in how we apply things and how we, get on with life and all that. But if we strip everything back,
Yeah.
we're quite similar in that respect. Um, First impressions. Let's go all the way back.
I thought you were very. I don't know. I liked you from the very first time I saw you. I just liked you
Yes,
because
I'm
you
likable.
were very. We from the minute I think we met. I remember was it in the library.
I think it was library.
Yeah, it was in the library, and we just started chatting.
Just
We just started
it
talking.
was so organic. The gist was like
Yeah,
I've known you for a long time.
exactly. And like one of like you were saying, one of the things that really shocked me was just how old you were at the time, because you were relatively younger than most of us,
Yeah,
but in the way that you presented yourself, you were, I would say, to some degree, a lot more mature than many of the of yeah.
yeah,
So, and I think that that just probably one of the things that helped the friendship,
yeah.
because I never saw you as that small girl.
That baby.
Yeah.
Uh Shout out to my older siblings and my parents because I was always around older
Old soul.
people. So that's one thing about me. I think I'm an old soul. Someone
You're
was
an old woman.
teasing me that I stand like an old woman. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, just when you're not concentrating, I stand and fold my arms like that. You know how your grandma would stand? I was like, for real? So I am a bit of an old soul. But growing up, I'm so used to being the youngest in the room,
Mm.
but not anymore. I can't remember what I was talking about with someone at work, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm just 30," and I'm like, "Whatever."
Oh God,
I was
how I
like, "Yeah,
wish.
whatever."
How I wish.
But yeah, so I think I would agree. I think I was for at the time more mature than a lot of the people around me. My first impressions of you, obviously we clicked together, we got on, how do they say, got on like a house on fire. What's that term?
Something like that.
But Pam is very maternal. So she was always, and then being the last born in my house, so to speak, is kind of, there is that codependency is the wrong word, but I'm used to being looked after,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
And I like to look after people.
Yeah. So we kind of just
Yeah.
got on in that
But it
sort of
wasn't
way.
it wasn't unhealthy because
No.
it wasn't unhealthy because there were things that you've always brought into the relationship, and so we kind of balance each other out.
Yep.
Because you find with certain types of friendship, there's always one person that gives, and the other just takes,
Yeah.
and it then becomes toxic. But I was thinking about this the other day, and it's really weird. I don't think we've ever had like a blow up
Nope.
argument,
Nope.
but I have the tendency to fight. I think.
Yeah, and okay, and that's our difference, which is
I don't know
I'm
how to. I don't if something I can internalize to a degree, but I think if it gets, I don't like to feel choked, so I will at some point just say how I feel.
and that in itself is a good trait, to be honest, because if bottling things up to what end? But I think the difference with me is as well, when you, even if you blow up at me, I don't necessarily blow up back. And for me, I think probably why we've also never fought like blow up fights is I'm not somebody that is too insistent on my way or the highway, that kind of thing. So
Oh,
if I've
neither am I actually.
neither, so when and I trust your motivation when you come and say, Uju, you've done this thing and it upsets me. I know you're not just saying it for the sake of I just want to annoy this. So I have to step back and I'm like, oh, actually, sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't mean it like that. It's
yeah.
not, this is not the way. And because you're also not a spiteful or you're not a vengeful person, I've told you the sorry. That's the end of the
No, we move
argument.
on.
We move
Yeah, we
on.
move on.
And I think we've known each other so long that you also trust my motive. If I've done something that has upset you, it's not out of,
It's not coming from a place of, yeah.
it's not spiteful.
Well, life is life in as well. So sometimes, people get a bit complacent without meaning to be,
Exactly.
and we're all guilty of it. So it's just that accountability without it being spiteful, which is great. So yeah, I'm so happy to be doing this with you. I can't wait to see
Aw.
where our conversations lead. I mean, one of the things that we hope to leave with you guys is, like I said, is our hearts. We really want to take you guys on the journey with us, and we hope that you come along, and we really want to connect with you all in every way, shape, or form.
Yes, this is kind of, it might get very therapy sessiony at some point because that is really what our conversations are really about. Sometimes
Getting to the roots of
you get,
Yes.
and there are some things that are in your head, and Pam is very often the first person that I actually voice it out to, if that makes sense. And I think advice and vice versa. I like, oh God, I can't believe I said that out loud. But as is that really? She's said it out, and then she's like, "Come on, do this to us. It's not making sense." I'm like, "Okay," and she's that person that I know will tell me the truth once I've messed up. It's like, "Girl, I love you, but this
not like
one did
that.
not make sense," and I have to go tail between my legs.
And vice versa, which is fantastic. So yeah, thank you for hopefully coming on the journey with us, and yeah, we're really excited
We
about this.
really are.
We always want to leave you guys with something to bit of a food for thought. And we're going to be a little bit biased because we're two women. We don't know how men think, but we're going to hopefully try and take everybody on the journey. But some of this particular card that I'm going to read out is really speaking, well, try and make it generic to everyone, but speaking directly to my sisters, to my women who are doing their best every day,
Yes,
trying to
so
conquer the world. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. So it states that a woman is like a tea bag. You can't tell how strong she is until you put her in hot water.
For sure, for sure, for real. I suppose it's the same for everybody, but to our ladies out there, you're strong. To our men, thank you. Oh, you two also, you are strong.
Thank you.
But please like, share, subscribe to our channel. We love you. Please come on this journey with us, please.
Until next time.
Bye.